Hi guys, it's Kelly Letterville here, and I am back again with another video for Tonic Studios. Lots of product here. So I'm using the classic cardstock in grass green and candy red, the falling snowflake stencil, peony blooms stamp set, and the, which I did not show, the snowman snuggles for my sentiment. This color right here, this yellow, is from the Woodland Walk Diamond Hybrid inks. And basically I'm just using a ink blender to put it on because I just wanted to add some more dimension to the background. Don't worry, it's not even gonna matter because this card was such a roller coaster that I didn't even end up using this piece because I tried something new. Isn't that nice? It is nice to try things new. So just something to note before we move on to the technique. I filmed this video quite some time ago. Two things to note. I do not have on my engagement ring because at this moment I am not engaged. Well, the moment of the voiceover I am, but the moment the card's being created I am not. Second thing to notice is look at my nail polish. It's a beautiful nude color. I totally love it. It's not going to stay this way. Hang tight. So basically, Gilded Flakes, these gold Gilded Flakes that Nuvo has, are beautiful. And I've had them forever and I've wanted to use them and I just never have. So I thought, well, this is going to be the time. I'm gonna give it a go and see how it goes. So I'm using the large flat tip glue pen over my stencil to hold, because I need something. I need some sort of adhesive for these Gilded Flakes. And then pretty much what you do is you just pluck them out of here. And I mean, this container is, just jam-packed full of these gilding flakes. And I just smushed it down and rubbed it over top of the stencil. That way I would remove the stencil and I would have these beautiful gold foil snowflakes. This was the game plan. This did not work. And sometimes it just doesn't. And I mean, that's why you play around with things and then you see how it goes. So here you can see that some of the glue kind of spilled underneath. It ripped my cardstock in some places. It did hold the Gilded Flakes for sure. But I just didn't love the way that it looked and it ripped the paper. But here is something that I did learn, okay? Because I had some glue on my thumbnail and the Gilded Flakes stuck to the glue on my thumbnail. And I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. This looks like marble or something, and I totally loved it. Side note, a really easy way to clean these things up is just with a lint roller. I was doing it with tape at first, and I'm like, this is silly. I have a lint roller in the bathroom, and it totally worked. So then after I had the Gilded Flakes on my thumb, yeah, look at my nails now. I have a totally new manicure because I went through and just like added glue in random places and then rubbed the Gilded Flakes over it, put a top coat on it, and that manicure lasted for like 5 to 7 days. It totally lasted. It was awesome. I will definitely do it again. I think it'd look really pretty with like a teal color. But anywho, back to the card. So here I'm just stamping in the Clear Mark embossing ink from Nuvo, and I'm stamping, I stamped the large peony on the candy red cardstock, and I'm stamping these two leaves on the grass green. We're going to do some NoLine coloring. This turned out way better than I ever imagined that it would. And that's why, even though it looks like a Christmas card, I made it to be a Christmas card. I'm going to be honest with you because I feel like, you know, we have a trusting relationship here and I should not be dishonest. And I did make it to be a Christmas card, and then I never posted it. But I loved the flower so much that I still needed to post it even though Christmas has come and gone. So that's where we're at. NoLine coloring, if you've watched my videos, you know is challenging for me. I like my bold black outline. It makes me, it's my little security blanket. It just makes me feel more comfortable. I get very apprehensive coloring things NoLine because I feel like it looks blobby, and this, doing it on colored cardstock, guys, oh my word, made all of the difference because it wasn't like this blank white background. It already had some color to it, and so really all I felt like I was doing was adding the shading where it was supposed to go. And I normally am not like, oh my gosh, I love my coloring so much, but in this case, oh my gosh, I love my coloring so much. I will definitely do this again, for sure. So I picked out some reds, and then you'll notice that my darkest shading color is actually a purple. The Nuvo markers just didn't have a red that was dark enough for me to get the kind of shading that I wanted. And so I started looking through the rest of the markers to see what I had that I could shade with. And the dark purple worked perfectly. Because you're putting it on red cardstock, it doesn't look like the bright purple it would on white cardstock. It looks like more of a dark maroon, and it worked wonderful. So don't be afraid to mix your color families, okay? I know that I have said that before with other alcohol markers, but it is true. In no matter what particular brand of alcohol markers you enjoy, mixing your different color families can give you a totally different look. That's amazing. So pretty much for this coloring, I started on the outside edge and I'm going to work my way in. I'm going to add shading where one petal lays on top of another. I'm also going to add shading where it curls up over itself, like that first petal that I colored. I'm also going to add shading where they're drawn so that they're dipped in to kind of accentuate that portion of the drawing and make the petals look more realistic. And in some areas, I will completely fill in the petal, and in other ones where I want there to be a lighter highlight, I'm actually just going to leave the color of the cardstock. So there are times where, as I'm going through and coloring, I've realized that the shading needs to be a little bit darker. So I'll go back in and add that as necessary. Here, I'm going to show you a couple of petals, just regular speed. And then as it progresses, I am going to go ahead and speed it up. This whole card, when I loaded the footage, it took me 2 hours. 2 hours of footage, which was actually much longer because I had the trial and error of the background. So the green cardstock that I originally used, I tell you the products that I use in case you fall in love with them and you want to buy them. But that's not what I ended up staying with. I just couldn't. It just didn't work for what I wanted, and I needed a neutral, which is why I opted for the black cardstock. So just so you're aware on that, the reason that I tell you those things is because you may have looked at the first part of it and been like, oh, I really love the gold on the green, but she didn't tell me what the green cardstock was. So I try to just be upfront about the products that I'm using, even if they don't end up being the ones that stay to the very end. So I think we should be speeding this up here momentarily, and then I wanted you to be able to see the whole thing so you could see it all come together. But obviously we don't have time to sit here for 2 hours together, and I totally get that. So what has been happening since the last time that I talked to you? So I believe the last video that I put up was it me and Eric? No. There was one with my engagement ring in it because I was chastised for not holding my hand still long enough so you guys could see my engagement ring. I apologize. On the next video that I do, obviously this one was shot before we were engaged, but on the next one that I do, which will be coming up shortly, there won't be too big of a time gap. Because I just have a lot of fun things coming up next week. I will make sure that I leave my hand still in the beginning for at least a couple of seconds so that you can see my engagement ring. My engagement is beautiful. He did an excellent job. Here is part of the problem with being friends with somebody and then dating them and, getting ready to marry them. Is they know you before they are your significant other. So poor Eric had this terrible challenge because we were friends, and we were very good friends, and so had a lot of open, honest conversation when we were friends. And after my ex-husband and I split, I obviously I kept my wedding band. I kept my wedding set on for probably about a month, I think, because honestly I was really very worried about how Peanut was going to take the taking off of the wedding set, and I loved my wedding set. I just did. I don't, and because we were because we were friends, Eric knew that I loved my wedding set. And so eventually what I ended up doing was purchasing myself a ring. I bought it for myself, and then I was wearing that as well. And then Peanut and I were talking one day, and I had asked him what he thought about Mommy taking off her ring, and I said maybe we could pick out one together that Mommy could wear instead. And so that is what we ended up doing, and how I ended up taking off my wedding set from my ex-husband. But because, like I said, because we were friends, he knew how much I loved it. And so then in conversation, now here he is like, oh great, she totally adored the last one, and now what am I left with? Like, what what am I gonna do? So what he ended up doing was going to a jeweler, and he actually he had a folder on his phone that was like hidden away. I think he titled it like favorites or something, where he had secretly been keeping pictures of like rings and settings and stuff that I had said that I liked. And then he also totally scammed an old picture off, like, I think my Facebook or my Instagram, of my old wedding set. And he took it to the jeweler, and he was like, listen, bro, she loves this one. I can't have the same one because, like, I don't want the same wedding set as her first husband, but I need to get something that she's going to love. And so they worked together to build my ring. He did. It is custom made, and he did an excellent job. I absolutely love it. It's a beautiful ring, but more importantly, it fits me. He really took the time to make sure that it was going to be something that I would, besides the fact that it tells the rest of the world that I'm married, to my husband, but that it was going to be something that I would want to put on every day because I love it. And that it just suits my personality. It's very simple. In my like in my coloring and my card making, I'm, bold colors and big flowers and all of those things. But in real life, my style is clean lines and minimal patterns, simple colors. My mother, and I think it was maybe the generation she came up in, like, my mother loved her some baguettes. Like those diamonds that surround everything, and they're all over the bands, and then they surround the diamond, and they surround the diamonds that surround the diamonds, and there's diamonds everywhere, and like that's just not for me. And so the style that it is, a marquee diamond is my favorite. It's my favorite cut, and so it is a marquee, and then it has three smaller round diamonds on each side, and it is a high setting, which, because I love a high setting. So he listened to all of the, through conversation, things that we had talked about, and made sure all those things were incorporated in my ring, and I love it. As far as the wedding band, it isn't like a matched set because it's a custom made ring, so I will have to go in and talk to the guy who built my ring to then build my wedding band. So yeah, that's that. As far as wedding planning is going, it's not really going. It's not really underway. We totally intend to have a short engagement because if we decide, and I'm not sure where we're at on that, but if we decide to extend our family, we're running on borrowed time just because of biology. So we know that it's going to be a much shorter engagement. And so we sat down and picked out about 4 reception halls that we're going to go look at. And then from there, hopefully it'll be one of those 4. If not, then, we'll go back to the drawing board and pick some more. But hopefully it'll be one of those 4. If we can pick one, then we're going to see what dates they have available and then go from there. That seems to be the game plan that will work best for us, because we're Well, we're having, I guess we're compromising on a medium-sized wedding. I obviously have already done this before, and with my first marriage, I had a very large wedding with all the things, and I realized that all the things did not matter. It just the things that you thought were going to be important weren't important, and like you really didn't even notice them on the day. And also, we're paying for this thing ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like my mom and dad, like traditionally, the parents of the bride pay for the majority of the wedding. The groom's family pays for the rehearsal dinner and the booze. But my parents have already paid for a wedding, so I'm not looking to ask them to pay for another one. So basically, we're going to be footing the bill ourselves. So that's another thing to take into consideration. But I am trying to be very sensitive to the fact that Eric has not done this before, and he, even though boys don't necessarily sit around and think about all the things that they want for their wedding, he doesn't want to just like go to the church small family gathering, backyard reception, which I totally get. Also, destination wedding really isn't a possibility for us due to our families and traveling. Like my Gram's not getting on a plane to go to Turks and Caicos for a wedding. That's not going to happen. And so if I have the option to have her at the wedding and have it at home, and maybe it costs a little bit more money or takes a little bit more planning, then it's a no-brainer. That's what we're going to do. So mostly our wedding, really most of it is being kind of set by what Eric wants. Like I do have obviously I always have an opinion, can't help myself, cannot stop it. The opinion just flows from my lips. But a lot of it will be determined by the things that he's like, hey, I really want this. And then that's cool. And then we'll go from there. So back to the card. This flower is done, and oh my gosh, guys, like I love it so much. This is probably like hands down the best NoLine coloring I have ever done. And it's not because I've been sitting around practicing. I assure you, I have not. I haven't really been doing much of anything in the card making arena, unfortunately. Just because of everything that we've had going on in our regular lives. So the leaves, basically, same type of thing. I decided that I liked the look of adding shading a little bit to the top, and then maybe a little bit to the top, a little bit to the bottom, and then maybe one side or the other. I'm only going to show you just 2 leaves here because I did them all exactly the same. As far as the technique, a lot of them I did just fill in completely, so that there is none of the like the regular cardstock color showing through. But I did try to be conscientious enough, about the shading to leave some highlights in there just so that it's kind of broken up and it doesn't just look like a dark green blob. So yeah, I hope you all had a happy New Year. Eric ended up, we both worked on New Year's Eve, but I took a half of a holiday. And then I came home to go over to my parents and spend some time with my family. But he ended up getting stuck at work because it was a busy night. And so I really did not even see him. He didn't get home until like 7 o'clock the following morning. And then he had to sleep as much as he could, get up, and go back to work at 3 p.m. So here I'm fussy cutting out this flower. Just when you fussy cut, you want to hold your scissors in your dominant hand and then move the paper with your non-dominant hand. It will give you the smoothest cut. And I did this with the leaves and the flower. So once this is done, we're going to go back to the background. And the way that I found to make this work, side note about this stencil, this stencil is only available in the Tonic UK store. But I did do some researching, and it is also available if you're stateside and just love the stencil. It's available at scrapbook.com stateside. So here's how I found to make it stick. I went in, and this is the Indian Gold mousse, the Nuvo mousse. And so I put this down first. I did not do the whole background because that was part of what I didn't like about the green one, was that it was too busy. Remember when I told you I don't like a lot of pattern? So I really just did like the right hand corner, like ish, right hand side ish. And I didn't completely fill in like the outside edges. I kind of just let it trail off. And I'm using my little spatula to do this. Love this little spatula. And just smoothing it around, you know, I didn't want it to be super thick because really I'm just using it as an adhesive for my gilding flakes. So once I'm done putting this all on, I am going to go in with the flakes and do the same thing, just, you know, that I did with the glue. I'm going to just press them over top of it. And then it worked beautifully, honestly. I had to scrub the daylights out of this stencil when trying to get the glue off. So the glue was not the problem. Like that Nuvo glue pen worked crazy good. And if I ever have anything where I'm like putting loose glitter on something, or what the sparkle dust that they have, that would be amazing because the glue, I mean, really worked very well. It just, you know, just kind of like smushed underneath my stencil. So here, this is where I'm putting on those gilding flakes, and they stuck beautifully. And then when I pulled off the stencil, I just set it aside to dry. So, yeah, so it was New Year's Eve. We went and did that. I didn't really get to see Eric, like I said, but I hung out with my family. We all do like appetizers, bring appetizers over to my mom's, which is always fun. I made veggie ranch pizza at the request of my sister. And then my sister Kim made cheeseburger dip at the request of everybody except my mother, because she doesn't eat cheese. But that cheeseburger dip is so good. And then you put it on like little slices of like fresh bread. It's just so, I way overate. I overate. My mom makes hanky pankies, which is like the little rye bread with it's like a mixture of sausage and cheese and something else. Those are very yummy. So yeah, I'm all about the sampler that goes on New Year's Eve at my mom's. So this is it. Like I said, it worked wonderful. Super happy with that. Set it aside to dry. I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment in gold so that it's all matchy. And then trim it down to just a little label. So we played a game. What did we play? The logo game. You would not recommend, honestly, unless you're like super into consumerism. No, I guess we all are, honestly, living here. But basically, it was asking you questions about logos, but also about like the companies. I'm trying to think what one of the questions was. It was not a really fun game. It just, I don't know. It might be for other people. It just was not for our family. Like one of them was what female actress and singer you gave Ford racing tips and drove one in her fast cars video. That was the question. And I was like, the only fast car song I know is by Tracy Chapman. And there was no Ford Mustang in there, or any other Ford for that matter. So I'm confused. And it turns out the answer is Queen Latifah. I have never seen a Ford anything by Queen Latifah. So I'm very confused about why that would be the question you asked. Like you couldn't give me some, I don't know, Toby Keith or some Alan Jackson, some people I have known to be Ford people. I'm not sure. But yeah, so we ended up changing the rules because you had to like answer one question for every square, and there was a million squares. So we ended up just changing it so you rolled the dice. Thankfully, my mother always has dice. And so we rolled the dice so that we could expedite the process. But yeah, so we were going to play Heads Up tonight, but Peanut was very tired, and I have day shift in the morning, so we skipped it. So maybe next family get together we'll play Heads Up. That one's a super fun game. So I adhered my flower and my sentiment with foam tape. I glued the leaves down flat. I'm just going to add some clear glitter on top of the flower, and then I'm going to call it a day. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you had a wonderful new year, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.